The station announced relationship compliance the way it announced gravity recalibration, with the same bored tone and the same assumption that everyone agreed this was necessary. I was standing in line for nutrient coffee that had passed 14 safety committees and still tasted like regret, when the compatibility sirens chimed softly overhead. Couples paused mid-conversation, wrists turned upward, and implants exchanged polite bursts of data. Green lights blinked. Approved. Temporarily. That was when I noticed her doing something profoundly inefficient. She wasn't scanning, syncing, or waiting for authorization. She was handing things out. Physical things. Small rectangles that made people hesitate before taking them, as if paper itself might be contagious. One brushed my sleeve and fluttered to the floor. I picked it up out of reflex, half expecting it to dissolve or summon security, seeking a partner. No conditions. That was it. No genetic ranges, no commitment duration, no disclaimers about emotional liability. The station. I audibly cleared its throat through the ceiling vents, which it only did when confused. The alien woman smiled as someone asked if this was satire. She shrugged, a gesture close enough to human to be unsettling, and said she didn't believe connection worked better with footnotes. People laughed, nervously. Laughter was how we handled the system errors that looked like philosophy. She looked human until she didn't, and the realization arrived in stages, like lag. Her eyes reflected the corridor lights a fraction longer than expected, as if considering them. Her hair shifted when she tilted her head, not with motion, but with mood, rearranging itself as though it had opinions. None of this triggered alarms, which somehow made it worse. The station preferred its anomalies dramatic. An official drifted over, wearing the expression of someone trained to solve problems that never questioned the framework. He suggested, politely, that she register her intent through the proper channels. She thanked him and handed him a notice. He stared at it, then at her, then laughed. Once, sharply, like a software glitch manifesting in flesh. This violates at least 12 protocols, he said. Yes, she replied, pleased. The older ones. That earned her a few more laughs, this time genuine. Humor was leaking out of the cracks she'd made. Someone behind me muttered that at least she wasn't asking for a dowry or a neural bond trial. Someone else asked if this was a mating ritual or performance art. She said it depended on who was watching. I didn't know why I stayed. Curiosity, maybe. Or the fact that for the first time since arriving on the station, nothing was trying to measure me. She met my eyes, not scanning, not assessing. And for a brief, disorienting moment, nothing happened. At all. No data exchange. No verdict. Just choice. Sitting there awkwardly between us, like an unsupervised child. By the time the station issued its first formal confusion bulletin, the situation had already outpaced the software meant to interpret it. I learned this because my wrist implant asked me, politely, whether I was experiencing unlicensed curiosity. I told it yes, and it froze, which felt like a small victory. The alien woman was no longer handing out notices. She had run out. This caused more concern than the notices themselves. Scarcity always did. A crowd gathered, not tightly. Crowds were regulated too, but in that hesitant, orbital way people used when they wanted to be near something without admitting it. Someone asked if more notices would be printed. She said no, because the act wasn't the point. That answer triggered 3 automated warnings, and one laugh from a cargo pilot who said that was the most romantic thing he'd heard all cycle, which earned him a fine for unsolicited sincerity. She sat beside me at a public interface bench without asking permission from either me or the bench. My implant buzzed, then sighed. She asked if humans always needed approval to sit down. I said only when we were thinking too hard. She seemed satisfied with that and tapped the interface, which immediately switched languages to something it didn't officially support. The bench apologized. We talked, not about partnership, which everyone else wanted, but about failure rates. She found them fascinating. Not the numbers themselves, but our obsession with lowering them. I told her humans preferred predictable disappointment to unpredictable joy. She laughed, a sound that made a nearby sensor recalibrate acoustics twice. A passerby asked what was funny. She said fear wearing a lab coat. That passerby nodded like this explained several personal decisions. An enforcement drone hovered closer, projecting a list of acceptable conversational outcomes. She waved at it. The drone paused, as if embarrassed, then drifted away. I asked how she did that. She said some systems could be confused by being treated like participants instead of tools. I considered my implant, which immediately pretended not to hear. Around us, people attempted unscripted interactions and failed beautifully. One couple tried to introduce themselves without data summaries and forgot their own names. Someone else attempted a joke and filed an incident report against themselves. The station's AI lowered ambient lighting in what I suspected was a coping mechanism. She stood eventually, announcing, not to me, but to no one in particular, that tradition didn't require success, only offering. Then she asked if I wanted to walk without a destination. My implant screamed silently. I said yes before it could recover. Nothing exploded. No alarms sounded. Somewhere deep in the station, a predictive model quietly resigned. The third incident report was filed because someone tried to flirt without metrics and pulled a muscle. This was not officially connected to her, but everyone knew it was. The station had entered what the AI later labeled an experimental social drift, which sounded better than panic. I encountered her again in a maintenance corridor that wasn't supposed to have people in it. My implant insisted we were lost. She said being lost was usually just being early to something you hadn't planned yet. The corridor lights flickered in embarrassment. She asked if humans always argued with their own wrists. I told her only when we were losing. She explained conversationally that her people once tried compatibility systems too. They had been very good at them. Entire generations matched with breathtaking efficiency and catastrophic boredom. The failure wasn't dramatic, it was quiet. They optimized themselves into emotional silence. Someone eventually posted an offer with no criteria, expecting ridicule. Instead, it caused 3 duels, 2 lifelong bonds, and a festival that lasted a decade. Regulation followed later, and then tradition hid inside it, waiting. I asked why she brought it here. She said curiosity, mostly, also archaeology. I asked what she was excavating. She gestured vaguely at me, at the station, at the ceiling. Buried instincts, she said. Very well preserved? Slightly neurotic? A drone interrupted to inform us we were exceeding our daily allowance of unstructured dialogue. She thanked it for its concern and asked if it had ever chosen anything. The drone hovered, processed, then said it preferred not to discuss its upbringing. We laughed. The drone logged the laughter as hostile sarcasm and left. As we walked, people reacted in strange comic ways. One man announced he was opting out of compatibility checks for the afternoon and immediately asked where to file the paperwork for opting out of opting out. A couple tried holding hands without authorization and set off a mild alert that played soothing music until they let go, which only made them laugh harder. The station responded by adjusting gravity by 0.5%, the bureaucratic equivalent of clearing its throat. She told me bonding, for her kind, couldn't be scheduled. Neural patterns aligned when they felt like it, or not at all. Attempts to force it resulted in migraines and bad poetry. I said humans usually just got the poetry. She considered this and said that explained a lot of our archives. At one point, she stopped walking. I stopped too, mostly because my implant had given up and powered down in protest. She asked if I was afraid. I said yes, but not in a useful way. She said that was the best kind. Then she smiled. Not an invitation, not a promise, just acknowledgement. Somewhere, a long-term forecast failed to load. The station never admitted anything had changed, which was how everyone knew it had. Compatibility checks still ran, permits were still issued, and the AI continued speaking in its calm, institutional voice. But the pauses between its sentences grew longer, as if it were thinking before committing to certainty. My implant resumed functioning after a dramatic silence, and immediately suggested I file a report about my recent behavioral deviations. I dismissed it, gently, the way one humors an anxious relative. The alien woman prepared to leave without ceremony. No farewell announcement, no cultural exchange plaque. Just a scheduled departure window, and a light carry bag that seemed to contain nothing measurable. People hovered nearby pretending not to watch. A few had tried her tradition, themselves, failed. Some succeeded in ways that confused the data models for weeks. One unlikely pair caused the station to generate a footnote that was later deleted out of spite. I asked her if she was disappointed. She said disappointment required expectations, and she'd brought none. She did, however, seem amused. The station, she said, had excellent material potential. You panic creatively, she told me. It's endearing. The enforcement systems never wanted to classify her actions properly. In the end, they labeled her visit an unresolved anomaly and archived it. That bothered them. It bothered me too, once. Now, it felt like a gift. I noticed I no longer waited for prompts before speaking. I sat where I wanted. I talked on to people without summaries, accepted silences without filling them. Once, I laughed without checking if it was appropriate. And nothing terrible happened. Before she boarded, she handed me the last notice. I hadn't seen her keep one. The paper was warm, faintly humming, as if it remembered being offered. I asked what I was supposed to do with it. She said nothing was required. Then she added, kindly, that doing nothing was also a choice, and humans underestimated how radical that could be. The departure was smooth. No alarms, no violations, just a ship slipping into calibrated nothingness. The station lights adjusted. The AI resumed its cadence, slightly offbeat. Life continued, less optimized, more interesting. I folded the notice and didn't scan it. I didn't need to. For the first time, I trusted an outcome I couldn't predict. Somewhere between regulation and tradition, I had learned the shape of choice, and it fit my hands better than I expected.